What's up, you beautiful Redditors? Hope you're having a fantastic Monday. Welcome to the RNEWS Evening Show. And let's just jump into it. From r/World News. Portugal to make COVID vaccine free, universal and perhaps even mandatory. There are places it won't be free. Even America made the H1N1 free. The NY Times reported a couple weeks ago that in the US the federal government will cover the cost of buying and distributing the vaccines. Providers, insurers, and patients will have to work out how to cover the cost of administering the vaccine, and the feds are going to try and get insurers to make it no cost for patients. I looked up the Medicare reimbursement rate for the cheapest influenza vaccine and it's less than $10. So, my estimate is that the cash price will be $10 or less and no cost for people with insurance or no money. Honestly, this might actually work out well. For $10 per patient, I could see Walmart pharmacies opening up drive-up and park vaccination clinics. Drive-in, park, release form, pay $10, inject, wait 20 minutes, leave, optionally, for another 10 minutes of waiting. They will process your insurance and it will be no cost, hopefully. Hopefully. That was with more competent leadership though. They'll pay or they'll die. The American healthcare system edit. Thanks, stranger. Reading these comments reads like Americans don't get how Europe works. Or how the world works. I'm willing to bet we'll have the same in most of South America. It's cheaper for the governments than dealing with the effects of the disease. So it's a no-brainer. You're watching the RNEWS show. From r/World News. Mexico's solution to the COVID-19 educational crisis, put school on television. Portugal did the same, edit, and a bunch of other countries. Same as New Zealand. Australia didn't do the same, instead used Google Meet. What did the vegans use? We use Google Vegetables. Turkey did the same. As will the Philippines, edit, a word. As did Kosovo. As did India. Source, m.timesofindia.com, www.ndtv.com. The DoorDash and Kendras that are already broadcasting virtual classes are Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Gujarat, and Jammu and Kashmir. All India radio stations broadcasting virtual classes are Vijayawada, Hyderabad, Bengaluru, Tiruchirappalli, Coimbatore, Puducherry, Madurai, Trivandrum, Tirunelveli, Panaji, Jalgaon, Ratnagiri, Sangli, Parbhani, Aurangabad, Pune, Nagpur, Mumbai, Gangtok, Guwahati, Bikaner, Udaipur, Jodhpur and Jaipur. As did Brazil. In the States we sent people back to college. Then 2 weeks in said everything was going to be online. This ensures students had to pay room and board at the universities without having to maintain those facilities. A smart way to give some of their older citizens a refresher. Haha, for many, this would be the first time they had any schooling TBF. You're watching the RNEWS show. From r/News. University of Alabama orders faculty to keep quiet about outbreak. This is happening at multiple colleges and universities. I know we have cases at my institution, but the administration won't tell us anything. Not numbers or even which campus. It is frustrating. Call your local paper. Tell them your institution is hiding the numbers. Let them do the digging. That's how we know about this case. It's Tuscaloosa, Alabama, i.e., Trump country. The local media isn't going to do anything. You might be surprised, local papers largely still enjoy a credibility that our national ones don't. I mean, unless it's a Fox O&O. But that will cause the outbreak to be even worse. A professor should inform their class to help slow the spread. Yes, professorship, like science, requires education. The superstitions behind the coronavirus being a hoax, or just another flu, is the polar opposite of education. Why a university would decide to quash proper dealing with a pandemic is deplorable, and beyond my understanding, unless, as is so often the case, decisions like this are being made by monetary requirements. University of Alabama declares that outbreak is much worse than it might seem. Faced with raised eyebrow, I got suspicious when they announced their new mascot was a coronavirus. Rolled eye. You're watching the RNEWS show. From r/Politics. White supremacists were on a hunting spree in Kenosha, says Local Lawmaker. They were driving around in pickup trucks, targeting protesters, said State Rep. David Bowen. This happened in Minneapolis too. We had groups of white supremacists roaming around and harassing protesters and trying to agitate. The Boogaloo Boys roaming around in trucks without license plates. Also, Umbrella Man, who helped change the peaceful protests into riots. That kid got exactly what he wanted when he came to Kenosha, a chance to shoot protesters. I hope he spends the rest of his life in prison. He got brainwashed online and he went to human hunting. This is stochastic terrorism. These people absolutely are terrorists. Why social media accounts and message boards that advocate for violence against POC are allowed to operate is beyond me. The tech sector has blood on its hands. We need to treat far-right terror groups as an existential threat to democracy and go after them. The way we went after Al-Qaeda, shut down their networks, confiscate their weapons, and arrest anyone breaking the law by advocating violence. I work with a bunch of old retired military guys and have to hear this crap every day. Yesterday's gem was about how it was a shame that kid didn't have a belt feed gun so he could get more of them. It's wild listening to the candor about killing fellow Americans. And by wild I mean horrifying. It's also important to call them what they are. White supremacist domestic terrorists. No more euphemisms. You're watching the RNEWS show. From r/news, MGM Resorts lays off 18,000 previously furloughed employees. This is part of why my wife and I got the frick out of Vegas in late April. A service work-based city that has no customers coming in is going to suffer hard and things are going to get really bad. And then desperately trying to open early is only going to hurt them more when they inevitably have a large uptick in cases. Vegas is going to be hurting for a long time after this. And rent is already crappy out there. Not to mention so many of the apartments had no intentions of working with residents during a time when Vegas had basically no income. So no one could pay rent. My wife and I had to pack up our crap and throw plenty away. We dropped our keys in the mailbox and emailed our apartment that we were breaking our lease. We literally had no money to give them and they were still demanding the previous month's rent after we tried working with them. This is Orlando, too. All of the conventions are cancelled, no tourists are flying in, the restaurants are closing. The hotels are laying off thousands of people. The MGM CEO nabbed himself a $32 million exit package though. Let the rest rot. I mean, even with PP this is what happens. PPE was just meant to stave off layoffs for a while. It's not fixing the root problem that no one is traveling and tourism is basically non-existent. Airlines are gonna have to lay off a bunch of people shortly too once the PP money runs out, and they've been pretty upfront about it. You're watching the RNEWS show. From r/politics, Arizona is on the verge of turning fully blue. The Republicans could lose not only its presidential electors, but its U.S. Senate seat and state legislature. When you see the recent shift in polls against Trump, remember that we are talking about people who up until a few months ago thought that Trump was deserving of a second term. We cannot depend on people like that. You have to register and you have to vote. Exactly right. And voter suppression will be in full force. Except the part where their government is far out right-wing crazy. Far enough to ensure it doesn't switch with nefarious activity. See Georgia, Wisconsin, and NC for examples. Get fricked, McSally. That's all. And that's where we're going to end today's show. But if you like what you saw, leave a like, and if you want to see more of the RNEWS show, hit that subscribe button. As always, this has been the RNEWS show and I'll see you tomorrow.